Dynasty Warriors and handhelds really go hand in hand. Even all the way back on the PlayStation Portable, we had so much Muso action on the go. My personal introduction to the series and genre was actually through one of the Empire's expansions. So when we heard that the big open world Dynasty Warriors 9 game was going to get the same treatment, I was pretty interested. My first video after upgrading my main computer to Windows 11. Here is my review of Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires for the Nintendo Switch. Because this is an Empire expansion, there is no story mode. All you've really got is Conquest mode story scenes of officers simply wanting to rule and conquer all territories. So let's go right into gameplay. This is a third-person Muso action game with strategy and management. First of all, this is an Empire's expansion of Dynasty Warriors 9, meaning it's more of an add-on release. It doesn't have a story or campaign mode, just Conquest, Edit, and the tutorial. It doesn't have a free mode like the previous Empires game did, and no multiplayer, co-op, or versus. This is a single player only experience. Speaking of content, let's go into the character roster. We have literally hundreds of characters if you count the countless bland NPC variations. But in regards to actual characters, we get 94 heroes from across the franchise. 4 more than Dynasty Warriors 9 had at launch. Unfortunately, they kept the changes that 9's base version made to all of the returning characters, meaning a lot of the gimmicky and fun weapons like Kai Wenji's harp are still gone. As a player who's pretty much mained Kai Wenji in these games ever since getting into the franchise, her defaulting to that bland steel whip for the sake of, what, realism? It just feels wrong. Now with game modes, let's start with Edit mode, which is where you can create a custom character. And this game has more advanced customization options than Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires had, being a lot more comparable with the Neo series as far as the character creation goes. We've also got new features with armor that is laid out on top of clothes instead of just being a part of the set. You can actually go in and turn the armor off if you wanted to only show the clothing or only part of it. Then we go into Conquest mode, where you pick a ruler from officers based off of time periods of Chinese history that you wish to play out, or Age of Heroes if you want to pick from literally everyone. And you can pick any bland NPC, hero, or your own custom character to try to invade other territories and take over the entirety of China. Your goal is to choose a starting territory and invade outward until you control the entire country. Now, Conquest has a lot of management and political gameplay mechanics. You take turns to do various actions like invading territories, defending your own that's being attacked by someone else, or putting in various actions within your own territory. This could be as simple as having a dinner with your officers to raise companionship to the point of marriage and having children, as cruel as pillaging the peasant houses of your own kingdom to steal money and resources, or just going out and invading someone so you can do the Muso action gameplay. There's really a lot you can do, and relationships with both officers and people can drastically change things like money intake, resources, and your reputation. But the most important feature here is territory strolling. Word on the street was that the open world format of Dynasty Warriors 9 was completely axed and removed for Empires. It was partially taken out, but not entirely. Going on a stroll is meant for you to freely roam around your territory capital to talk to officers or recruit others to your cause. But you also have access to a really big open world area, just not in the exact same way you had it in Dynasty Warriors 9 proper. You can freely just walk out of your capital and explore the roads, wilderness, and other towns in the area, and it is a genuinely huge map for you to roam around and explore with plenty of fast travel points to discover so you can hop between areas. The problem is you can't really explore anything that is not owned by you. Sure, you've got all of these areas to explore with occasional little groups of enemies or animals for you to fight, and some of the NPCs are hidden that you can recruit to your cause, but you can't infiltrate enemy bases. There aren't really any missions or objectives for you to do there. I will admit that it was very handy for testing around different weapon types until I found something I liked for my character, but there's really just not much to it. Now let's get into that action Muso gameplay. This is all about invading and defending bases. When you go into an invasion, there isn't an open world, it is more stage-based like the previous Dynasty Warriors games. Invading has the standard Muso format of taking over bases and hack and slash combat to take down overwhelming amounts of enemies on your own. But instead of just taking base after base until the main keep opens up, you have a special battering ram base you have to take over and keep control of as your allies roll a battering ram up to the castle gates and push it down. There's a lot of management and protection as you have to protect not only that base, but the battering ram itself. Now, once the castle gates are down, it does sort of go back to that older format where you can literally just rush up to the main keep, take down the bosses, and win the game. But up until that point, it is a lot more strategic. The combat mechanics have also changed quite a bit. Gone are the days of combining light and heavy attacks for different types of stylized combos. It is now replaced with a state system with special inputs when bosses are low on health, basic light and heavy attacks, and R-trigger shortcuts to initiate special moves for knockdowns, power attacks, and more. It's a fun system, though it doesn't feel nearly as mindless as the previous games were. Now, as all of this comes together, we do have a decent amount of content and length, but it really falls on how much you like the gameplay. With no free mode, no multiplayer, and no story mode, it all comes down to Conquest. Now granted, my first game of Conquest lasted me well over 20 hours across territory grabbing, open world exploration, upping companionship, and the list goes on. But I really love the genre, so your results may vary. Next, let's get into presentation. Visually, the character renders look pretty decent. There's a fair amount of detail on them, though the environments look really bland. This is especially apparent in the open world where the ground just looks like a flat color with trees and bushes popping up as you walk along with pretty not great draw distance. It definitely looks better in the snow areas with a mix of the dirt and snow, but it still looks really bland, kind of like how some of the PS Vita Muso games looked. Now, they may have done this to make the open world format work on the Switch. Performance actually isn't that bad. Frame rate jumps around a fair bit, but remains pretty acceptable between 25 and 35 FPS in most scenarios. The biggest drops I got were from using the special Muso attacks that are cinematics where you can't control the game anyways. That's all I have to say about performance, so let's go into battery life. The original model gets a battery range of 2 hours and 43 up to 3 hours and 29. The Switch Lite gets a range of 2 hours and 50 up to 3 hours and 41. The Redboxer V2 2019 model gets a range of 5 hours and 5 up to 6 hours and 33. And the OLED model gets a range of 5 hours and 25 up to 7 hours and 2. In conclusion, Nine Empires brings more Muso action to the Switch with its open world intact. Now, the downside, it has a strange lack of game modes, the open world returns but without most of what gave it function in 9, and the visuals of said open world environments look pretty rough and bland with a lack of detail and extremely short draw distance. Now, if you don't mind the looks of the open world and a lack of multiplayer, it's still a fun little Muso game to play on the go, just not what you might expect. Reviews to Go rates Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires for the Nintendo Switch a 7 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.